Hey guys, and welcome back to Theoretically Practical. I finally sold the Belarus. Ended up getting 2,500 bucks for it, made 1,100 in profit on it. So a reasonable flip, but nothing wild. But I said when I sold that, I was gonna buy a skid steer. So what I did was, I bought a skid steer. So this lovely unit is a 1991 or 2 Gehl, whatever. I'm gonna say Gehl, but I don't care what you call it. It's got all the hours on it. I picked it up for $4,000. It does not currently run because the engine in it is bad or has a problem with the injector pump, but the injector pump got sent out and never got back. So whatever, that engine's no good. But it came with a different engine. I'm not going to say it's a shiny new rebuilt engine. I think it's in pretty good shape. But it's the right 4-cylinder Perkins diesel. And yeah, everything seems to be very close on it. There's a couple things. There's like an accessory drive here that's different. I think the flywheels are different. The starter's different. But we're going to just swap. But before I got too deep into it and ripped the guts out of it, I want to show you guys what was up. So this is the back of it here. It's an engine. We'll see. This might be more of a project than I thought, but this was by far the least expensive diesel skid steer on Marketplace that looked like it was maybe a project, but all the parts are there. So the other thing I liked about it is, the one thing I always look at on skid steers is, if you look at the back of this, you know, there's some dings in this cover, but it's not all stove in real bad. You know, it's tasted life. It's 30 years old. And basically the story is, the guy I got it from, and whether or not the story is 100% true, who knows? I think he was straight with me, is he had this for years. The injector pump went. He couldn't get the injector pump rebuilt. He bought the new engine, and then he just had a series of health, this is an older gentleman, he's had a series of health problems befallen, and he has another skid steer that works to do what he needs skid steering with. He's kind of gotten out of the business and just was over it. So, yeah. So, the bad is the engine. The good is it's got 4 reasonable tires and 1 pretty decent spare, and the bucket is really in good shape. I think it's either been renewed or replaced. The negative side is this does not use the standard quick disconnect, so it's a little different than normal, and it has T-handle controls, which I've never used before, but I've never driven a skid steer before, so you know, this is just as familiar to me as any other method. So yeah, that's about it. We'll show more of it, but we're way too excited to pull an engine out of it because, I mean, if you're watching this, you're the kind of people that get excited about pulling engines out of things too. So, you know what I'm talking about. So our plan today is just to try to get the engine out because there's a lot of cleaning. I mean, there's some primordial, wow, that's deep. Yeah, we want to get all this crap out of there and clean it up before we put a new engine in because, you know, it's just the right thing to do, really, in any circumstance. So it's not too bad. I honestly don't think we need to even take the cab off. We just flip the cab up, and there's the motor mounts there and there. I think the bolts are in the primordial ooze somewhere there. And then you just take the bell housing bolts off, and that's it. It's got 2 nice little lifting tabs on it, so that's nice. It's a mechanical, naturally aspirated diesel. It can't get much simpler than this. You're basically pounding rocks together at this point. So I'm just going to kind of set up the camera off to the side, and you'll get to kind of watch us yank this engine right out of there. Well, it's much later now. We're almost ready to pull the motor, which is just our only goal for today. I will say that out of the undercarriage, I filled that 5-gallon bucket. I filled those kitty litter things, and it's still not great in there. I do want to talk about how to remove this motor, just in case somebody else is in the same position and needs to know. One, they're all bolts, so you have to go underneath the machine, and there's 4 circular holes, and that's where you got to put a 15/16. So 15/16 on both sides. And the other thing is this big pump here. There's like a little bracket under there, and then there's just the ears of the pump there, and that's it, and then you pull it back. You don't you can't take this big bracket off. You have to take the 2 bolts. One's on the outside and one's underneath the corner there. Ask me how fun it is to remove them. It's not fun at all, but we got it out. So that's, I guess, what matters. So yeah, so there's the engine in all of its horrible glory. We've disconnected everything that we can, and we're about to just we're gonna try to pull her out. We'll see how bad that goes. It'll go fine. I think we're ready, which means that we're not, but we're doing it. Oh, we're out. Huzzah! Success. All right, guys. So when I was talking about the motor mounts 4, there's one here somewhere. There's one there. There's one on the outside of that side, and then there's the other one on this side. And then the main hydraulic pump, if you can see back in that pitch black hole, just stays in place. So we got lots of room to clean stuff out, though. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, I don't know. We already did so much of the intro of this episode. I have no idea where we are right now. Let's be honest with that. But I know where we are right now. Anyways, so we got the whole skid steer cleaned out and pressure washed. You can see down in there, it's now nice and cleanish. Originally, I kind of thought about trying to paint the interior of this, but I don't see that as being worth it. But I'm glad to get all the garbage out of there. Oop, we'll go around the front. Take a look there too. So this is the front section. I still got some junk in here I got to scrape out, but it's basically clean. There were holes in the bottom of that, which were not at all what I would have expected. So this is the hydraulic pump. Something, if I haven't talked about this yet, if you have to roll one of these Gehls around, there are a little square valve right... Nope, you can't see it. All right, there are 2 little square valves. They're right there, right in the middle of the screen, right next to that fitting. And there's another one that is right there. It's right there. So those are how you roll the machine around. I put it in that mode, and then all of a sudden we could, move it around. Because right now, 2 people can push this thing around. You can't turn it, but you can move it back and forward, which is all we need to do to get it out of the garage. So just a pro tip, a lot of machines, it's not going to look the same, but a lot of machines have a method to do that. And you don't really want to drag these things around. They shouldn't turn the wheels. You can blow seals out of motors. Hopefully nothing has been wrong with this, but when we started to move it, we were dragging it and none of the wheels were turning. So I think that's a good thing. So we now have a cleaned up radiator that light can penetrate and also air. We have a cleaned up hydraulic chiller and the motor mounts, and that's the skid plate from the bottom. So this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, this bucket, and this bucket are all full of something. Stuff. We'll say stuff. Stuff's a good term for it. I got to figure out if the dump will take it or whatever. It's all oil contaminated soil, possibly post horse soil, I would say. Anyways, it's all contaminated soil. Like if you're cleaning off these machines, I'll still pressure wash it outside because there's really no other option. But yeah, don't go just dump it in your backyard, especially if everyone around here has a well. Especially if you got a well. Just, get rid of it right. I'm hoping my dump will take it, but other than that, I'll have to figure something out. So anyways, that's where we are with the machine. So I'm really happy. I think we're ready to, put some stuff back together again once we're ready. It's, again, nice and clean in there. It doesn't look like there's any leaks or surprises to find. So hopefully hopefully we're good. So let's talk about the engines. So this guy here is the original engine from it, and it is a Perkins 4.108 or 4-108 or 4108. It all means the same thing. If you ever have one of these and you need to figure out what it is, the number is, and you can't see it here, but the number is right here where the injection pump would bolt on. This is the original engine from the machine. We're not going to be using this going forward. I hope it has some value as a core, because that's all it's really good for. Apparently it was a running good engine until the guy pulled the injectors out and the glow plugs as well, and took the exhaust off, and it's seized up right stiff, and I already pulled the oil pan off because it's a large cast aluminum oil pan versus the oil pan on the engine that's going in, which is much smaller capacity and steel. I think the aluminum one should dissipate heat a little better, but also a larger volume will kind of act like an oil cooler system. When I took the oil pan off that, about 2, maybe 3 gallons of water came out before any oil, and the oil that came out is as sickly looking as I have ever seen oil. Like a semi-congealed black jello. So I don't have any interest in trying to resurrect that motor at this moment. I might take some time once I'm all done with this to open it up and see what's inside and let you guys take a peek at it once we get the other one running. I don't want to get too distracted by this, but I think I might break it free just for the purposes of using as a core, but that's the only thing I would do with it at the moment. It's definitely had a hard life. So let's talk about the perfect and completely the same engine that came with it. It's not completely the same. It's okay. But this is not a Perkins diesel, technically. This is a Westerbeek 4107, which would be a Perkins 4107, which is the precursor to the 4108. This engine, judging by the way the date code is, because you can't see it because it's bad, but the date code starts with 107. Just knowing, or the serial number starts 107. Just knowing that means this is from the 70s, probably, maybe even the 60s. So it's kind of hilarious that we're putting the new engine for this machine is 20 years older than the old engine. But, you know, marine engines should last a good long time. I'm not concerned about that. You know, we'll see once it runs. So this has a few weird differences. Right now, I don't have an oil filter on it because this has a remote oil filter, so I just looped it so I could crank it over. This is the oil filter and housing from the 4108. All of the parts are going to be compatible. There's no issues with that. It is, even though it's a Westerbeek 4107, it's a Perkins 4107. They bought the blocks and all the internals, and apparently Westerbeek put, I don't know, it seemed like they put crappier ancillaries on it, basically, and it also has like a Paragon, you know, forward neutral reverse boat transmission on it. And if anybody's really after Westerbeek 4107 Perkins reversible transmission thing, you know, let me know, because I got one. It's sitting outside, and man, I don't know if it's any good, but it's not any bad. So you'll notice the lack of injector pump and that it's sitting there. Well, this comes the disappointing part of this video. So this video was supposed to end with me triumphantly starting this thing up, and it was going to purr like a kitten. It was going to be so good. But you got to have, you know, the injection pump injecting, which we don't have. So that's where we sit this video. I am going to take it upon myself to take apart and rebuild this injection pump on my bench. Now, everyone's screaming at or all three of you screaming at your screen now, going, oh, don't do that. You got to send it out to a professional. There's a number of reasons I'm not going to do that. One, this injection pump is, what I understand, looking at it, it's stuck from sitting. It's not damaged. It's not worn out. It's just got sitting with diesel fuel in it and bacteria growth and just seized up. Not like seized up in a bad way, but it's just gummed up. So I'm going to take them upon myself to clean it. I also know that if I do it right, I save myself $500. If I do it wrong, I still got to spend $500, but it doesn't really matter. So we'll take this guy apart. Now this is a Lucas Cav type pump, and it's a DPA 324 3880, which I can find nothing about online, but I think it's because from my research, it was only on these Westerbeek diesels that they put this exact injection pump. I would be pretty comfortable putting an injection pump from any of the Perkins 4107 or 4108 engines on here. I think you'd have no real difference. The only thing to be important is where it says PH 30/500/8/3190. And I don't know what all the numbers mean, but I know the 500 is the idle speed and the 3190 is the maximum RPM. So those are important things to know if you're trying to play swap around games with diesel pumps. I don't really recommend it. Unless it's something like this where it's just a bunch of engines that are basically the same. The only real difference in injection pump would be how much fuel is delivered, which means how much horsepower it makes. Because diesels, they're always running lean. They're always detonating. So you don't have the same, you can lean out a car engine and blow it up. A diesel's already running lean. And in fact, if you run it way too rich, you can burn a hole in the piston top, which is ironically exactly what happens when you run a gasser way too lean. So, but anyways, the other reason I'm willing to rebuild this pump is because this particular pump has much fewer adjustments than a lot of the other pumps. So, and we'll get into that in the video, but in this one in particular, we'll just say that all of the timing is non-adjustable and set from the factory. And this is very important if you're gonna take it off, take an injection pump off. If you look down there, I don't know if you can see, but there's a tooth missing on this section right here. And there's a corresponding extra flat in the driver on this end here. So you can't screw the timing up on this. There's only one way to put it back on, and now granted, if you took off the timing chain belt, I don't even know what's in there. I don't even want to look in there till it starts. I think it's a chain though, but the timing chain anyways, if you got that wrong, that would be the problem, but you can't get the pump wrong to itself. So it's actually a lot simpler than the Defender was. And in a similar way, I'm just gonna be trying to preserve the timing. So the next video will hopefully be rebuilding this and putting it back on there and having it start. And we'll see how close to that we get. I'm guessing at least a solid 70% of the way there. And then the video after that should be stuffing it back in its hole where it will leak. I didn't mention that, did I? Well, the beautiful thing about these is the rear main seal is a 2-piece rope seal and it's guaranteed to leak. No problem. Oil's cheap. That's probably the only reason that engine lasted so long, because it leaked so much oil that it got continuously refreshed, because I guarantee no one had taken the plug off the oil pan for like 20 years or something like that. I guarantee it. You could take that to the bank. I don't know. So anyways, I'm running out of steam on this video. It's kind of chilly out. I gotta clean off that because that's where I'm gonna rebuild the injection pump, and that needs to be sterile. So yeah. We'll get her done, and then hopefully, we have a good skid steer. One more thing that I noticed on this that I don't love is that the splines on this shaft here are definitely worn. More worn than I thought when I took it off. There should be, see how they're like pointy? They should have a flat, I believe, on each one. So that's not great, but I do have the new coupler to replace the coupler that was in the engine. So, because this is the old coupler, and it's, the old coupler is pretty worn out. So I got the new coupler, which is a lot less worn, or, well, isn't worn at all. It should fix a lot of that. And then there's Also, in situations like this, if it was any worse, I think I'm just going to put this back together with a ton of grease and actually put a Zerk fitting on that coupler so that you can grease it regularly, because that'll really prolong the life. You can use a product called Loctite 660, which is meant for basically gluing two worn splines together. I'm sure you could also use JB Welder, whatever you want to work with. So this was really rambly. I'd apologize, but you guys keep watching, and I'm pretty consistent in my insane rambling. So with that, I think that's about it. You know, the Gehl, we'll see if it's a skid steer yet, but I got good feelings about it, more or less, or whatever. You'll find out in a week or two. So, yeah. Also, I'm not sure if this is going to get shoehorned in or not, but I apologize about my video posting frequency lately and how terrible it's been. I have just been a busy bee lately. My editor friend has been rebuilding his entire house, and I got married. And I would hold the ring up, but I don't wear the ring in the garage because it going to get ruined real fast. But yeah, so now I'm sorry, all the women watching this that were lusting over me. I'm sure there was at least none of you. I'm on lock now. Sorry. Have a great week.